September the 11th started like any Tuesday morning.
Of course, it was just a beautiful September day.
I was just literally on my way out the door, and the TV in the family room was on.
And the people that worked upstairs came running down. One of the men said, opened the door and said, "A plane just flew into the World Trade Center."
And I was standing there watching the TV. I saw the second plane hit the tower.
It just left me in shock. I guess that's the only word I could say.
It was like when somebody pokes you in the heart.
Took a couple of minutes before it sunk in. Didn't know what to feel, what to say.
Everybody was walking around in like a zombie fashion, and I felt helpless.
In our hearts, we knew immediately that the Knights of Columbus would do something, because that's what the organization is about.
And by the next day, we had established the Heroes Fund. The Heroes Fund is an initiative of the Knights of Columbus to provide immediate assistance to the families of the fallen firefighters and police and rescue personnel who were killed on September 11. Our executive committee established the Heroes Fund the morning of September 12th, set the procedures in motion on September 13, and by Friday of that day, checks were being cut and on their way to the first victims' families.
No matter what house I went into, the majority of them had young children. And to see those young children, and to think in my head that those children are now fatherless, it was very heartbreaking.
They had a young daughter, and she asked me if the Knights of Columbus was a large organization. And I said, yes, we're in many countries around the world. She said, well, could you ask your members to find my daddy? And I really, well, you know.
We were able to respond quickly because of who we are. The fact that we have an infrastructure of both our insurance agents and our councils and assemblies throughout the community. We knew we could be right there because we were right there.
Hi, Mario.
Hi, Rhonda. How are you?
Okay. Mario first called me to tell me that he had a check for me and my children, and he was very kind and came over, no questions asked, and presented me with a check.
So, Rhonda, I'm just back to see how things are going with you. How have you been? About 90% of the benefit checks or Heroes Fund checks that I delivered was the first tangible proceeds that these women had to continue taking care of their day-to-day life.
My husband was a wonderful person, very caring, kind, would do anything for anyone. A great dad. He was always with his children. I'm very glad that Dan joined the Knights of Columbus because I don't have to worry about my children now. Their college is being paid for. My husband would be very thankful for everything that is being done for my children and myself.
We wish we could have done more, but we were there, and I think in a very true sense, Father McGivney was the guiding force behind this.
Father McGivney started the order as a fraternal benefit society.
He reached out to the immigrants who needed aid. Father McGivney, when he set up the Knights of Columbus, never envisioned something like 9/11. But I think he did envision the need to take care of people. And as a member of the Knights of Columbus, I'm very proud of that.
Father McGivney's vision was really to be there to help, especially to help families when the breadwinner is killed or disabled. That's the origin of the Knights of Columbus, and so it was just the most natural thing for us to move out and respond in this manner.
One of the families that I met with was Mrs. Richard, Dorothy Richard. Her husband, Vernon, was a lieutenant in the New York City Fire Department.
I didn't know where monies were going to come from. And I says, oh, what am I going to do? Especially when it came to my mortgage. I was just totally out of it. I knew the mortgage was due, so it came in, at least it was money I could use right then and there. And that was so helpful.
We weren't concerned about who was a member or what religion they were. It was, you know, seeing a need and stepping in and filling that gap before anybody else did.
Vernon was a protector and a provider. He left some legacy. He was the first black to be promoted to lieutenant in that particular class. He was the type to say, never say can't. He taught his children that too.
My father is my inspiration. He will always be my inspiration. He was just so proud of me attending college, and I'll be the first one in the family to graduate. He has worked so hard to get me to where I am now.
God takes care of those who love people, and Vernon loved people. The Knight of Columbus loved people. And Knights of Columbus helped, and that's what Vernon did, helped.
God was present in the many police officers, firefighters, and rescue workers who went into that building. Greater love than this has no man than to lay down his life for one's friend. And many of those people were not friends, but they gave of themselves. And I think that's really what the Knights are doing also.
The Lord be with you.
The creation of the Heroes Fund is really a response from the Knights of Columbus of what they're really based on, living out the gospel of love.
The Heroes Fund received contributions in excess of $1.2 million from Knights in every country. So it was really the breadth and depth of the organization that responded. In fact, we had members of councils the very first day coming into Ground Zero and being there to help the firefighters, the police, the rescue personnel.
We said we had to do something. We really had to do something. And feeding the rescue workers was an idea. So we got a few guys together, started cooking up some meals, and we cooked for about 250 to maybe 300 people. We knew it was going to go a long time, so we did it for another 28 days. It made us feel like we were doing some small part for the country, for the families.
The Heroes Fund really transcends just the concept of money. It makes you feel good inside.
One of the families that I served was Chief Gansey's family. Kathleen was very pleased that the Knights of Columbus would think of her.
It was very unexpected. We were not members of the Knights. My father was, but I hadn't even given it a second thought. I was still in shock.
First helped a lot of people.
Yes. I was quite moved by it because it probably was, I would say maybe a week to 2 weeks after Pete was killed. And here was somebody offering to help without filling out 1 million papers, which is what, seems to be the way things are.
This is a living example of the value of all the principles of the Knights of Columbus.
My husband achieved the rank of Chief of Department, which is the highest uniformed officer in the fire department. The fire department was my husband's life. He was on the force for 33 years. I used to say it was the mistress in our marriage, because if you do it right, it's all-encompassing. He never really got crazy over anything, and even that day, the worst of it, they said he was very calm and very methodical, knew what he had to do, and that's what he did. Charity was always a part of Pete's life. He always went one step further, which is what I believe the Knights do. And he always did it without being asked to do it. That's what the Knights of Columbus is all about.
In my 22 years as a Knight, I have never been prouder than to call myself a Knight of Columbus than I have since September.
It was an honor for me to be associated with these people and with my brother agents who went out and did this.
I never knew such loving people were out there.
I was amazed by the courage of these widows. I was able to get strength through them to get through the day. If they could do it, I could do it.
I would just like to say thank you so much for their kindness and supporting me at such a difficult time and being so kind to my children.
We can't always choose the challenges that face us, but we can choose the response we make to them. Father McGivney's vision is as relevant today as it was more than 120 years ago. And our principles of charity, unity, fraternity, and patriotism are living principles, and nothing proves that better than the success of the Knights of Columbus Heroes Fund.